You and I did a pod last week, and the clip made social media stand on its head where you said, don't draft Kyren Williams. You're not in on him. And if you're not in on Kyren Williams, it would stand to reason you might be in on Blake Corum. So why is that?
Well, I mean, again, I'm not a Kyren Williams hater. I'm still expecting him to get 18 to 20 touches. Look, at the end of the day, it is annoying a little bit. And look, I'm confident in my takes, but it is annoying when, you know, the masses kind of poo-poo something. It's like, guys, you don't know shit either. I mean,
we don't have access
the season
to
hasn't happened. You don't know shit about what's going to happen here. Will Kyren Williams stay healthy? You don't know that. All we can do is use logic. And has Kyren Williams had injuries the last 2 years? Yes, he has. Was Kyren Williams a high draft pick, high pedigree? No, he was not. Did Kyren Williams have an accomplished college career? Not really. Did he test well at the combine? Not really. Was there any competition in the backfield for him last year? None whatsoever. Again, I could be wrong. I mean, Kyren could deliver the goods again. I understand that McVay does lean on one running back generally, but I would also argue, like, how many times in the McVay era did he have two really good options? I mean, he went from Gurley to like Darrell Henderson, and that wasn't a good option. He kind of had to use a dual backfield there with, I guess, Cam Akers too. Just throwing that out there. I don't think Sean McVay has had an option behind his starting running back as good as Blake Corum.
What?
Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.
We're going to pick off some names that you've highlighted past, we'll say, 75, 100 picks into the draft. And this first name, when you sent it to me, I agree with, but it goes against a lot of what you've kind of built your career on, which is young ascending talent. And this guy's not exactly young. If you watch Hard Knocks, the Giants talked about, we don't like running backs who are 27 years old and blah, blah, blah. They let Saquon go. They signed another 27-year-old running back in Devin Singletary. But he's kind of the only game in town, John, isn't he? And where you can get him 100 picks into a draft, if he gets all these touches and he's damn near 1,000 yards and I don't know, maybe we can get 7 touchdowns out of the guy, he's going to come through.
One of the most boring picks I've ever submitted, honestly. But then again, are you really boring if you're available 100 picks into a draft and you get, let's see, 260 touches? That really doesn't sound boring to me when you consider the low cost, basically, and the potential ROI for a true bell cow back. I've actually interviewed Devin Singletary at the combine. Again, boring, but not bad. Certainly, he's just a no frills, chill dude, and it actually kind of is reflected a little bit in his game. But he has always been a guy, obviously not a stud, but good lateral agility. He's got some make you miss ability. He's a pretty good receiver, not great. Doesn't have like home run speed or anything like that. But I mean, that's one of the most overrated things for a running back. He's a little bit of a grinder and not extremely talented, but and again, you look at the offense and it's just, wow, they are majorly thin a running back. And of course, Singletary played for Brian Daboll in Buffalo. So that the familiarity there is good. He is going to get like 22 touches week 1, guaranteed. He's also been amazingly durable. Do you recall a single Devin Singletary injury?
I mean, you look back to 2019 when he was a rookie. He only played in 12 games. I can't recall if he was injured or he's a rookie and he wasn't maybe seeing the field. But to your point, 2020, 16 games, 17, 16, 17. So you're right. He is durable. And his last year in Buffalo, he ran for 819 yards and 5 touchdowns. So he had a couple back-to-back 800-plus yard seasons on the ground, caught 40 or damn near 40 balls his last 2 years in Buffalo. Again, do you want Devin Singletary as your RB1, maybe RB2? I don't know. But if he's your flex, if he's your first guy off the bench, maybe if it's a hero RB build, okay, Devin Singletary is going to start every single week for your fantasy team.
Absolutely. You don't want to overrate volume and draft a guy just for volume, but at running back, if you're 100 picks in, you can do that. Basically, I always go back to Toby Gerhart. I know it's a weird comparison, but that
Stanford kid, right? Toby Gerhart.
Oh yeah, the year he took over in he went to, what was it, Jacksonville, right? I can't even freaking remember. People were taking him in the fourth round, the fifth round, because volume. It was like Devin Singletary. And let's take a look at what happened. He played 14 games, but he only had 101 carries because he was bad. He was 3.2 yards a carry. So yeah, in theory, when you have a guy who's presumably set up for volume, it looks good. But if you're not very good yourself, then you're just not getting the volume at some point. And that doesn't apply to Singletary though, because he's clearly better than everybody else on the roster. And, he's shown that, yeah, he can produce with volume. It might not be exciting, but it's productive. And the numbers are there generally based on his touches. He doesn't do a ton with them, but solid. Now we'll see about Tyrone Tracy. I think he's a massive wild card, the rookie. I mean, if we're counting on a former receiver here to truly contribute for the Giants early on, I good luck with that. I mean, that could take a half a season for Tyrone Tracy. Eric Gray, I thought, was a decent prospect. He's got pretty much a 3-down skill set. He's just not very good in anything. Solid. But this is probably the worst backup running back group in the NFL.
Let's keep it moving. Let's talk about, we talk about a guy who is always on the field in Devin Singletary. And let's move to a backfield where their running back has a tough time staying on the field. I'm talking about James Conner in Arizona. And when James Conner plays, James Conner is a good back. Okay. James Conner, last year, 15.5 points a game in a PPR, only played 13 games though. Year before that, guess what? 15.5 points in a PPR, only played 13 games. So there's a reason that the Cardinals go out and they get Trey Benson. And I see him in some drafts. People are excited to get Trey Benson on the roster because, Guru, they just assume, listen, it's James Conner. He's like Christmas. It comes around every season. You go, let's get ready. Yeah. Here comes the James Conner injury. Hang your stocking over the fireplace because the Santa Claus is going to come down and put a ACL injury in James Conner's stocking.
I mean, I'm not presuming James Conner is going to get hurt, but let's be honest. If you draft Benson in the 9th round, you're hoping for a Conner injury. I mean, not that we are hoping anyone gets hurt, but that's what you're kind of banking on. But I would still classify this as, one of the oldest tricks in the book, basically, to get a rookie, a very talented, high pedigree rookie running back who does not have a starting job basically handed to him. Mm-hmm. I mean, I haven't gone back and looked, but I think most of the time the cream rises to the top. There's usually a reason that the back was drafted by the team. They have a need, whether it be a short-term or long-term. But, James Conner has been very good. He's hanging on really well, but he's not getting 350 touches. Now, we'll see about Michael Carter, because when the offseason started, I thought maybe Michael Carter had a chance because he showed some signs there in the offense late in the year. But he's probably kind of clinging to a roster spot, battling DJ Dallas. I think the other thing is the Cardinals are looking pretty good offensively. And I was absolutely shocked when I did the projections earlier in the year, looking at the data. Like, the Cardinals had one of the 7 best running games in the league last year, maybe even top 5. I mean, in all the metrics, they were like really, really good. So they deserve a lot of credit for that. And, Paris Johnson, their number 1 pick last year, they've done a pretty good job reloading here on the O-line. So at the end of the day, you can't truly count on Trey Benson, but, it's only a matter of time until he's their guy. It might fully take a year, but, he's going to get some play. here alongside Connor. And of course, if Connor misses time as he does, now you're looking at a high impact needle moving asset. And generally speaking, as long as I feel pretty good about my first 8 picks, I'll take that guy in the 9th round as a stash and hope at worst.
Yeah, so Trey Benson, I'm in the Fantasy Points prospect guide that Brett Whitefield did, and it's still available at fantasypoints.com as a free download. And you can look up information on all of these rookies coming in to the league this year. And maybe the most glaring thing that Whitefield says is in his final points, he goes, Benson might be the cleanest running back in this class to project as a bell cow type at the NFL level. So you got a guy who's, 6 foot, 215, 220. He can run well between the tackles. He can block
shot out of
a
cannon, man. He's shot out of a cannon.
That's the kind of guy you want. And that's why we're doing this podcast. If you're going to load your bench with upside talent at the running back position, guys who are one play away, get guys who are one play away, but they're also really talented. And if everyone's going to blow their wad in fab trying to get this guy, if he was free on the wire, you're going to have him sitting on your bench thanks to this podcast.
How about this consistency real quick? Started the career at Oregon and only played 2 years at Florida State, which is good. And only had just over 300 carries in 2 years, but 154 carries for 990, 156 carries for 906. So 6.4 and 5.8 yards per catch. And then he's actually got plenty of potential in the passing game. In 2022, 11.1 yards of reception, and 2023, 11.4. So, I mean, that consistency level right there is encouraging, especially the pass catching stuff. So yeah, I don't think he's not to Zeke Elliott or Jonathan Taylor level. He's a notch below that, but that's still better than 88% of the running backs coming in the league. So he's up there, Trey Benson, in terms of talent, pedigree, upside potential, of course.
I guarantee you and I are going to be sitting here next year doing this podcast, and we're going to be talking about the running backs for 2025. And James Conner won't be on Arizona anymore. We're going to be talking about Trey Benson as like a 3rd or 4th round pick. Going to be like, oh, This is Trey Benson. You're going to get him as your 2nd running back, or maybe if you go 2 receivers early, take Trey Benson. Trust me, folks. That's the way it's
100%. We're drafting off of next year's cheat sheet in many cases.
Yeah. And a guy you loved last year, speaking of drafting off future cheat sheets, because you knew what he could become, was Tyjae Spears for the Tennessee Titans. So, folks, I want you to wipe away everything you knew about the Titans run game, about their offense. It's all gone. It's all different, okay? Gone is Derrick Henry. Gone is this slow ground and pound team. They went out and they've tried to upgrade their offensive line coaching. They tried to upgrade their skill position players, which they've done at wide receiver. Will Levis is going to be there. They're going to throw the ball all over the place. You got Spears, you got Pollard, and you can get a nice value on Tyjae Spears. You loved him last year, John. And when he got work later in the season, you talk about shot out of a cannon. You look it up in the dictionary, and the picture's Tyjae Spears.
Oh, yeah. And you mentioned the O-line. That is absolutely massive. And I think I've talked a little bit of Spears here on the podcast. I'm not totally sure if I really addressed the O-line because, first of all, that O-line last year was absolute ass. So shout out to Tyjae and also Derrick Henry for doing what they did behind that terrible O-line. But now here come the cavalry has arrived in the form of Brian Callahan and his dad, Bill Callahan, who is one of the top 5 O-line gurus of all time. And that is extremely important. I don't think maybe quarterback, sure, but I don't think there's an area or a positional group that is more in need of great coaching than O-line play, because a lot of it is fundamentals and things like that. And a guy like Callahan will make a good line very good almost immediately. Not only that, but they last year used their number 1 pick on Skoronski, the left guard, and then Latham, who'll be their left tackle. So they brought in Lloyd Cushenberry. So all of a sudden they might actually have, I know it's a big ask, but Callahan helps. They might have like a top half O-line. And at that point, that's all we'll take. If you're top 16, I think that's pretty good. But some digits on Spears, by the way, despite playing behind this crappy O-line, among 49 running backs with 100 more carries, he was 5th in explosive rate, 18th in yards after contact per attempt, and he had the 16th best stuff percentage, which again is worth noting because of the upgrades on the O-line. When I sat down with Tyjae last year, I was really impressed and fascinated, honestly, by what I asked him, like, when you do a play, like, what are you doing here? Are you reacting to color? Is the game slowing down for you? And he basically said that if he does a great play and the coaches ask him about it right afterward, he's like, I don't know what I did there. It was just instinct.
Right.
And then they would go watch the tape, and invariably his instinct was the right thing to do based on the play call and the blocking in front. So one of the reasons why he's really good and showed well is because he's got sick feel and instincts for this game. That's it. So I absolutely love him. I drafted Pollard over him in this draft we did on Sirius. I stupidly thought I could get Spears in the next pick, which I'll probably regret it. But, Pollard certainly is the starter. They're paying him the most money, but they're already saying it in training camp now that these guys are completely interchangeable. We don't even know who's going to be the primary receiving back. I've kind of leaned toward Pollard a little bit because he's a former college receiver, but I think Spears is better than Tony Pollard. At the end of the day, I think he's a better player than Pollard. So at 114, that's it's a great pick because he's going to be a factor. We were just talking about flexes. I mean, at worst, he's going to be a good flex. At worst. So if you were told, oh, you can get a guy in the 10th round, 9th round even, who lock it in, he's a good flex running back, and he might do a little bit better than that, you'd sign off on that almost every time.
And like you said, Pollard's coming in. He's interchangeable, and we don't really know what we're going to get out of Pollard. He had such a bad year last season. It's odd to see a guy who had so much promise, and I know he was coming off an injury and whatnot, but he just looked like absolute garbage last season for Dallas. So
I thought that really hurt them, Brian, when they lost Kellen Moore, and also in the complementary role. See, that's the thing. Like, Pollard was better with fewer touches, but I think the Kellen Moore element is in play here too. Coming off that leg injury, by the way, which he said the fibula late in the year that he was just now getting to 100%. So between those elements, I feel like he'll be okay, but it was surreal no matter how you slice it last year, how bad he was.
All right, rolling through a bunch of values you can get, let's say 100+ picks into your draft. We're up to a guy in Brian Robinson who is the starting running back for the Commanders. So now, I mean, before we're kind of talking about some guys, maybe they're a backup, they're splitting time. Brian Robinson is a starting running back for the Commanders team that is going to run a lot more plays this year under Cliff Kingsbury. Gone is that Eric Bieniemy trash offense from a year ago. Gone is Ron Rivera. Dan Quinn coming in. He's going to put everything in front of Kingsbury. Go nuts. Have some fun. You got Jaden Daniels now at quarterback. I'm really excited about him. Austin Eckler joins him in the backfield. And that's where I want to start. So you're saying to target Brian Robinson. Eckler showed nothing last year. I don't know if he was just hurt or if he's, father time caught up with him and he hit the wall.
Yeah.
But
he was definitely hurt, but your other point may be right as well.
Is Robinson, young, elusive guy, can he kind of even just distance himself from Eckler? Because with a young quarterback like Daniels, who has a propensity to take off and run, I mean, is he really going to be dumping off that much to Eckler? Like if Eckler's in on third downs or hurry up mode. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't think they're going to put Austin Eckler at the goal line. There's no point. That's why you have Robinson.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I'm not feeling Eckler at all. I don't think I've drafted him on a single team this year.
Not at all. No, not at all. But it's kind of weird because you'd mentioned at the top of the podcast, I'm put my kids through college, basically, targeting young, ascending, sexy sleepers and all that crap. And it does seem like finally, it took a decades, I guess, but the markets see they're overrating rookies now. About half of them at least are being overrated. I do feel like the entire pool of players here are getting a little bit more into these sexier, maybe more volatile picks. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there like always looking for an edge. Over the last couple of years, if you listen to me on Sirius last year, 2023, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to embrace boring because, there's nothing boring about Brian Robinson last year, even though it was a little sporadic. But if you read my draft plan article, I took him every time because he was an unbelievable fourth back in like the 10th round. I'm like, yeah, all right, Brian Robinson again. Let me take him. And guess what? He was an RB2 on the season. And we saw Cliff Kingsbury coax an RB1 season out of James Conner in 2022 with 15.5 points per game in 13 games. I actually think they're similar body and skill types here. So yeah, I mean, Brian Robinson should be good to go with another 250 touches. Been pretty durable. I mean, he's not a stud, but he's their best option. And he's already proven that he can do it in the NFL. Last year, he was an RB2. Yet he's still being drafted in the late 9th, 10th round. So it's a good recommendation. At worst, for really good depth, as your fourth back, let's say.
Exactly. You hit a bye week or you got an injury you got to fill in, and you're putting Brian Robinson in there. You're not getting, 3 points. Brian Robinson, he'll get you 10, 15 points in a PPR. The other thing, I mentioned pace and how big a change Cliff Kingsbury is going to bring to Washington. And I don't know if the casual fantasy fan pays much attention to it, but I know I do. When you look at teams that play at a faster pace, it's just simple math. You're going to run more plays. You're going to probably sustain more drives, and you're going to have more opportunities to get into the red zone, to score points. When you're playing these slow, boring offenses, and you can think of the Jets, Aaron Rodgers is notorious for that, running the play clock down and all that. It's not always conducive to fantasy points. This Washington offense is. I've never in my life said I'm excited about the Commanders offense, but this year I'm kind of into watching them, man. We talk about offensive minds. We mentioned Kingsbury. I mean, you can't talk offensive football without Sean McVay. And now Sean McVay has Blake Corum on his roster, who, if you go to the Fantasy Points prospect guide, Brett Whitefield had him as his number 1 running back. The, 5'7.5" RB out of Michigan. He's a really good player. You're talking about a first team All-American, good vision, a guy that can contribute as a passer. But John, he's got Kyren Williams in front of him. And you and I did a pod last week, and the clip made social media stand on its head where you said, don't draft Kyren Williams. You're not in on him. And if you're not in on Kyren Williams, it would stand to reason you might be in on Blake Corum. So why is that?
Well, I mean, again, I'm not a Kyren Williams hater. I'm still expecting him to get 18 to 20 touches. Look, at the end of the day, it is annoying a little bit. And look, I'm confident in my takes, but it is annoying when, the masses kind of poo-poo something. It's like, guys, you don't know shit either. I mean,
we don't have access
the season
to results.
Hasn't happened. You don't know shit about what's going to happen here. Will Kyren Williams stay healthy? You don't know that. All we can do is use logic. And has Kyren Williams had injuries the last 2 years? Yes, he has. Was Kyren Williams a high draft pick, high pedigree? No, he was not. Did Kyren Williams have an accomplished college career? Not really. Did he test well at the combine? Not really. Was there any competition in the backfield for him last year? None whatsoever. Again, I could be wrong. I mean, Kyren could deliver the goods again. I understand that McVay does lean on one running back generally, but I would also argue, like, how many times in the McVay era did he have 2 really good options? I mean, he went from Gurley to like Darrell Henderson, and that wasn't a good option. He kind of had to use a dual backfield there with, I guess, Cam Akers too. Just throwing that out there. I don't think Sean McVay has had an option behind his starting running back as good as Blake Corum. And Blake Corum, I think, if you read the prospect guide, Brett theorizes that he was not right for much of last year, but later in the year started showing the old agility and things like that. So I just look at him as, like a low to the ground volume type guy with make you miss ability. That works in the NFL more often than not.